He's one of the world's greatest architects. In his 50-year career, Frank Gehry's designed iconic buildings around the world. Perhaps his most famous is the Guggenheim Museum in Bilbao, along with the Dancing Building in Prague and the Disney Concert Hall in Los Angeles. Frank Gehry has developed his signature deconstructivist style. Now aged 85, Gehry has just unveiled a new building in Paris, the Louis Vuitton Foundation, devoted to the arts. Frank Gehry, hello, and thank you for being with us. We're sitting here right now in Paris's famous Pompidou Centre, where a major retrospective of your work has just opened. It's the biggest collection of models and drawings of your projects gathered together in one place. You're very prolific, but can you single out at all what you consider to be your masterpiece?
I would never do that. That's like, which child is your favorite child? I can't.
All right, let's move on then to your newest building, the Louis Vuitton Foundation. It's just been unveiled here in Paris. Has it had the impact, the reception that you've been hoping for?
I think probably it has, but I didn't plan anything. I just spend time working with the client. So Bernardo knows a pretty interesting guy. And when I work with a client, I try to make the building what their aspirations are, how they want it to function and what their dreams are. And it becomes a kind of a collaboration. So that's what makes the buildings not the same. So I can't. And I love that because it keeps me on my toes and fresher and whatever. Of course, I have a signature which you can't escape. I've tried to escape it, but I can't.
Your signature follows you around.
Yes, it does.
It's a huge and complex building encased by 12 glass sail-like structures. It almost seems in places to be floating. It's got a very ephemeral quality. What was your concept, the inspiration behind it?
Well, it came from the requirements of the building. So in order to build in the Bois de Boulogne, it couldn't be just a normal building. It had to be a garden kind of building. And a garden kind of building, it becomes a glass greenhouse or a arboretum or whatever. There is a kind of an agreement that buildings in gardens look different than buildings on the street. So the glass became a way of creating something that would reflect the Bois de Boulogne, would change, and would float, would be ephemeral. So it was intentionally done that way. I'm a sailor, so I have very, you can see sails coming back and forth in my work, like the Walt Disney Concert Hall of front is sails, and so that's a repetitive theme maybe, but it sort of worked here with the glass.
Was it a daunting prospect to create such a striking contemporary building in a very traditional environment like the Bois de Boulogne in Paris?
Well, I love that problem. And I just built a tower in New York, and I had the Woolworth building, and I like that kind of interaction, which most contemporary towers and buildings don't pay attention to the history of the cities they're in. They just ignore it. I was trying to make something that fit in the Bois de Boulogne, and I was trying to make something that kids at the Jardin d'Acclimatation would relate to. They would see their reflections. It would be a jungle gym. They would climb up into it and find it interesting to be there as a way of, it's a bit subversive in a way, but to get kids to come in to learn about art. I did that in Toronto at the art museum. Ken Thompson had a ship collection, and people don't normally put people's private ship collection in an art museum, but I convinced them to put it in a place so that when children came in, they would see it and would be attracted to it. And then there would be some paintings on the walls of ships, and they would then look at those, and then maybe they would get interested in painting. So it's kind of that.
It's such an impressive structure. Do you think there's a risk that the foundation, the building in itself, will steal the show and overshadow some of the artwork inside it?
I don't know about overshadow. I think my artist friends will take it on. Don't worry. I'm not worried about that. When I talk to artists a lot about the museums they want to be in and what kind of galleries. And I so often get, don't give us another damned white cube. Stop it already, you guys. So I think artists are human beings. They want challenges. When we did Bilbao and Tom Krenz brought me the puppy and said, "Where do you want to put it?" I put it right in front. It worked. It worked with the museum. It helped the museum helped it. I'm a young artist, and with all the hoopla this building is getting, and I come home and tell my mom I just got put in there. Wow.
I want to talk to you about the Bilbao, the Guggenheim Museum in Bilbao, which you mentioned there. That's regenerated that area to a huge extent. Did you ever expect that to happen when you created that building?
The Bilbao effect, so to speak. Well, the brief for me was they wanted the Sydney Opera House. That's what they said first day. I said, Sydney Opera House doesn't even work. But it's beautiful, and I understood what they meant, and I said I would try. I spent time with the Basques. I learned a lot about them. It paid for in the first year. I mean, it was, financially it's been great. It's exciting.
Do you think that should be the aim of contemporary architecture, to regenerate through culture?
I think that culture is the way we talk to each other. I've just spent a week with the Divan Orchestra in Buenos Aires. It's an orchestra with Palestinians and Israelis. And it was in the first days of the Gaza and all the fighting a few weeks ago. And the kids, you couldn't tell who was Israeli and who was Palestinian. They all look alike. And so they were together during the day practicing. They did their concert, and at night we had dinner and drinks, and they were all friends. While they were there, they were getting calls from the Palestinians. They were getting calls from their families in Gaza, and the Israelis were getting calls from their families in Israel. And I think it's possible. There was a glimmer of hope there that these kids could overcome that gap, that chasm between their cultures, and play Mozart and play Schumann, and it was great.
Finally, I just wanted to take you right back to the beginning of your career and ask you, I've heard stories, you've talked before about playing with blocks of wood as a child and building imaginary cities. Was that when you decided to become an architect? No, I didn't know I wanted to be an architect. Now looking back, all the things that happened would have told you, the footprints in the sand tell you that's where I was going. But no, it was only, I thought I wanted to be a chemical engineer, because I have a cousin that was a chemical engineer. And he was the only one in the family that seemed to be, everybody
was happy about him. So I wanted to be like him. I wanted everybody to be happy about me. I couldn't, it was boring, chemical engineering. I then thought I should be a radio announcer. But I didn't have the voice for being radio, so I couldn't do that. I took some classes in ceramics. The ceramic teacher, he was building a house by a California architect, Soriano, who was well known. I went to the site. Soriano was dressed all in black. He had a beret. And he was telling the guys with the cranes moving the steel and all that stuff. And then the next day, my teacher said to me, I watched you with this. He said, I'm going to enroll you in an architecture class. And so he put me in a night class in architecture. And since we were very poor, I suspect he paid for the class, because I don't know who else did. And it was like bingo.
The lights went on.
Yeah.
All right, great. Frank Gehry, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much, Frank Gehry.
Much.
It's been a real pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much.